this stuff now in some of those tax deferred accounts. So that's what most of our students do. They self-direct either their 401k or their IRA, but they do it with a broker that will let them trade futures and forex. So then you get a nice lift.
I used to be just technical analysis, but I also look floats because like there are stocks when you have small float actually it goes up much faster up and down.
Yeah.
So you make fast money.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what are your ideas.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, we're going to go
because
through.
Because like a selection of stuff, and now there's the market being crazy, going up and down throughout the day. Actually, what you were talking in minutes.
Yeah. That's the way to trade the stock market.
Because of what is happening now. The market totally changed.
Yeah.
But just like momentum trader, trading in 6 months, they made 30%. That was not bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just need to learn how to do
I
this.
haven't been doing this for several years, so now that I'm retired, I decided that I have to.
Yeah. Well, your rate of return in a futures account will be enormous versus a stock. So if you're doing well with stock, learn how to trade futures.
I like the math analysis. So I'm just trying to see if I should first take your stock.
Well, the first thing everybody has to do is the 3 days, because that's where you learn how those turning points are.
Yeah, because it is also selection of stock and trading the chart.
Well, that's the nice thing about trading the S&P is it doesn't matter what any individual stock is doing. This is the overall market. That's what this is a chart of record.
And when you look at long-term chart, S&P is good in almost everything. And then you go up and down.
Yeah, it sure is.
The spread is the best.
So now it's
Hey, thanks.
where do you live in your home?
I live in Dallas.
Where do you live there?
Yeah, originally from Chicago, and lived there most of my life.
What's the Northwestern?
My dad was
But in a way, it's good to
We have units in Los Colinas.
Okay, good, good. I live right near that.
Do you?
Yeah, yeah. Go to Byron Nelson every year.
It's good stuff. Yeah, I used to play there at golf course.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
Where you live?
I live in Dallas now. I'm originally from Chicago. I've been down there.
Born in Chicago.
Oh, yeah?
Scotland?
Chicago.
Oh, in Chicago. I was born in Minnesota and I lived in Galesburg, Illinois, and I went to Northwestern 5 years.
What do you do for the sun?
Okay, well, let's pick it up.
Well, no, now you forgot. It was a long time ago.
I actually grew up here in Arbor, Michigan. Born in Chicago when I was 5. My dad was a flew out of Detroit for a year.
That's the general feel I got.
Oh, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't take stock picks.
Oh, okay.
I just don't buy them.
Where were you in Minnesota?
These charts, are they proprietary to
No.
the academy?
No. This is a company called Trade Station. So they're a brokerage firm. They love to do your business, but you can get these candlestick charts from any online broker. Stock Trade, E-Trade, they all have them. It's kind of a universal thing.
But those are real time, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's happening as, so when you were showing us the graph, you said you can set it in advance based on
Yes.
the trend of the day.
Well, what you'll
So
do...
that means it's probably a predictor.
Well, what you'll do is, on a chart, we're going to teach you what the process is to identify those two zones.
Okay.
So whatever you're trading, right, is going to be in the middle of those two zones. So you can place your orders around those zones, and then let the stock either come up with supply so you can sell it, or down to demand.
But you'll be seeing that only as you go through the day, right? You won't be able to see that in advance.
No, but looking backwards, you're going to know where the supply and demand.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll show you how to do it. We're going to do that.
Perfect.
I was trading with a margin account. I was doing day trading and then massive planning and day trading.
Yeah.
Where you had to sell the same day.
Yeah.
Do any of those rules apply to the future
No.
forex?
And that's why people like it. So
That's
you
not
get,
one.
you get flag and pattern day trading. You do those 4 round trips, right, in a 5-day period.
Yeah.
And then you make it for 26 25 grand in their account. But there's no pattern day trade rule in these markets.
In any of them.
No, that's why with 5 grand, you could trade,
That's cool.
you could have 100 round turns a day if you wanted to. Okay. Okay, guys, one thing I wanted to show you before we dive into core strategy is we were talking about that ES and all the opportunity there, and I said that was a stock index, a futures contract, and that's what this is right over here. You'll see where it says ES. And so I have 3 different views of that thing up. On this chart, each candle here represents 1 day. So this is what happened today. On this chart, each candle represents every 30 minutes. And then on this chart, each candle represents 5 minutes at a time. So if I'm a super active trader, right, if I want to be in and out of the market, I'm going to use a short-term chart like this. Now also remember that we were talking about just making 4 points a day. And not being Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, just literally trying to knock 4 points out of that range. And so you see the prices over here from 32 down to 28 would be 4 points, right? 24, 32 to 31, 30, 29, 28. So from here to here is 4 points. So you can see, just since we've been going tonight, we had a nice little 4-point move. Now there was a 4-point move from here to here earlier. Another one late in the afternoon here. So they're literally have these moves all over the place. So I guess my point is we're being super, super conservative, and we say we're just trying to make 4 a day. But again, you want to err on the side of being conservative. So this is a great little thing to trade, and there's no shortage of opportunity there. So let's talk a little bit about our core strategy. And remember, we kind of started the day talking about 2 groups of people, right? Retail traders and investors, and banks and financial institutions. And we said that these folks generally don't practice good risk management. They do the wrong thing at the wrong time. About 98% of them end up losing money. So the other side of the coin are the big guys, right? The guys that are running markets up and down at will, that practice very good risk management. And basically there's a transfer of money from these accounts over into these accounts literally every single day, all day long. So a great place to see that transfer of funds, right, would have been on one of the trading floors back in the day. So this is a picture of the old Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And you guys ever see the movie Trading Places? Know that movie? Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd. So that's one of my favorite movies, right? And in that movie, if you remember, those guys were going to make a fortune trading orange juice futures. And they had a crop report ahead of time. Remember, they're going to put Duke and Duke out of business. And orange juice futures actually traded in New York on the New York Mercantile Exchange. Chicago, where this picture's taken, got real famous for that S&P 500 contract. That's where that thing trades. But anyways, just like in that movie, you know, the floor on the olden days, you know, that was kind of controlled chaos down there, right? There's all the people running around with colored jackets, and there's paper flying everywhere, and everybody's screaming and yelling. Every once in a while, you know, they carry some guy out of the pit feet first that doesn't make it. It's literally controlled chaos, right? Well, that's where our VP of Education, that's where Sam Seiden actually started his career, on the floor in Chicago. And this is back when it was chaos. Nowadays, of course, if you see a picture of the trading floor, that's a ghost town. Not many people down there anymore. Right? It used to be if you wanted to place an order on the floor, right, in the marketplace, there was literally an opening bell and a closing bell. And you had to pick up the phone and call somebody that was on the floor and actually place your order with them. Well, now all this stuff is done electronically. Right? That's why commissions went from 25 or 30 bucks a contract down to 1. Because there's no people involved. That's why instead of an opening bell and a closing bell and trading banker's hours, now the thing trades electronically. It trades 24 hours a day. So for us as traders doing this from home, the market's become a whole lot more efficient. It's a perfect trader's market, right? 24 hours a day, low commission, and big leverage. I mean, that's a trader's dream. At any rate, Sam started on the floor, and he started back in the heyday. He was actually an institutional broker, which meant the big banks and institutions, mutual funds, hedge funds, insurance companies, the people who trade a large number of these contracts would call Sam, and Sam would be the person that would take their order on the floor. And it used to be when you called and placed an order, before they were done electronically on the computer, before computers, there was literally an order ticket process that you went through. An order ticket used to look about this size, and it usually had a line down the middle. One side they called the buy side, and the other side they called the sell side. And so what you're doing when you have a client on the phone is they're telling you how many they want to buy and what price they want to pay for them. Or if it was a sell order, they're telling you how many they want to sell, what price they want to sell it at. So you write their account number on it, you make sure all the numbers are correct, and then you take that order after you confirm it, and you put it in a machine called a timestamp. Well, now that thing timestamps it to the second. So now that's a hot order, right? And if Sam wrote that order up and Sam timestamped it, he's responsible for that thing. So what he would do is he would get down on the floor about an hour before the market would open, and a lot of times, even an hour before the open, his phone would already be ringing, right? People want to get their orders in ahead of time, especially when something big is going to happen that day. So he's writing up orders, he puts it down on his desk, answers the next phone, answers the next one. It starts getting closer to the opening bell, the phones are ringing faster and faster, pretty soon he's on 2 phones at one time. He's just writing up these tickets left and right all over the place, right? It's starting to stack up all over his desk. And he realizes that once the bell rings and prices start to move around, he's responsible for all those tickets that he wrote. So he realizes he's got to get organized. So with about 3 or 4 minutes to go before the opening bell, Sam would actually stop answering the phone at the desk. He'd let the other guy on the floor answer the phones for the last 3 or 4 minutes. And what he would do is he would just focus on getting organized, right? He would organize what he called his deck. So he'd take all those paper order tickets and he'd pile them up according to price. So if the market was going to, just imagine this is his desk. If the market was going to open right here at a price of 45, if it started to move up just a little bit from the open, he had a small little stack, a few little orders, people wanted to sell it at 50. But if it moved a little bit beyond that, say up to 60, he had a bigger stack of orders. If it moved up to 70, even taller, and then if it got up to 80, just about everybody he talked to gave him an order to sell it at 80 that day. And then the same thing would happen on the downside. If it's going to open right here at 45, if it moved a little bit lower, there was a small stack to buy here at 40, a few more at 30, a few more at 20, then everybody wanted to buy it if it got all the way down to 10 that day. Now, once the bell rings and prices start to move around, he knows what stacks of orders he's got to send out into the pit to get filled at the right price at the right time. So he tells a really funny story. He said his first 6 months or so on the floor, he said there was a group of guys down there that used to trade their own account. They were members on the exchange. They owned their own seats. But they partnered up and they traded as a team. They traded together. And he said their desk was literally just down the road from where his desk was, just outside the S&P pit. And he said every single day without, and realize back in the day, to have a membership or a seat on the exchange, those seats, those memberships used to cost about $1 million a piece. Now, why the heck would somebody pay $1 million just for the right to walk on the floor and trade their own account? What would the edge be? Why would that be worth $1 million?
You see the supply and demand ahead of time.
Well, you're basically right there where all the trades are taking place. You see supply and demand right there. Let's say, for example, John is Goldman Sachs broker, and I'm John Larsen. I own my own seat. Well, if John's in the S&P pit and he's filling orders for Goldman Sachs, I can walk over and I can stand right next to him. Every time John throws up his hands and he starts buying for Goldman Sachs, guess what I can do for me? I can buy some for me. And he's going to run the price up for a period of time, and eventually at some point he's going to turn around and start selling. But when he turns around and starts selling, guess what I can do with the ones I bought? I can sell mine and lock in that profit, right? So it's the proximity to the order flows because you're right on top of all that supply and demand. That's what the edge is to being on the floor. Anyway, Sam tells a story about these 4 or 5 guys. He said every day, without fail, one of those guys would always find his way over to his desk just about a minute before the opening bell, and they usually had a cup of coffee for him with his name on it, and they'd walk over to his desk and just set the coffee down on his desk, just kind of right between where he had all his order tickets stacked up, and just say, hey, Sam, have a great day trading today. Good luck, knock him dead. We'll see you tomorrow. And turn around and walk away. And he's thinking to himself, man, these are the nicest bunch of guys ever. I hardly even know these guys, and every single day they're bringing me a cup of coffee. Well, obviously what they're trying to do is get a peek at his deck, right? Because what they wanted to know was where was the biggest stack of buy orders that he had. and where was the biggest stack of sell orders that he had? Because again, Sam's handling all that big institutional business. Now, when you're handling custom orders like that, you can't trade your own account. That's illegal. So there's cameras pointed at him everywhere. All the phones he's on, they beep every 5 or 10 seconds. So literally, if you had this information at your fingertips and you could trade your own account, all you'd have to do every day is put your order to buy right here, right in front of the biggest stack of buy orders, and put your order to sell right here, right in front of the biggest stack of sell orders. That's called front running. So they don't let you do that, right? So once the bell rings and things start moving around, he's responsible, right? So if you turn these orders on their side and you create kind of a profile view, this is how I want you to think of the market moving forward. At lower and lower prices, there's more and more natural buyers, right? If everybody wants to buy my iPhone when it gets down to $1, but at higher and higher prices, there's more and more natural sellers. Right? So when I lay this up against the typical candlestick chart, the footprints of money are all over this chart. That's why we use charts to determine where these turning points are, because charts don't lie. Right? Every trade that takes place gets displayed on a price chart. The footprints of money are literally all over this thing. So I can tell you with 100% certainty that right over here on these big green candles, that's institutional buying. Right? I don't have enough money in my account that when I come in and I start buying, I can make the market do that. Right? If we all pooled our money together and we all traded one account, we don't have enough money to make that happen. That's the Goldman Sachs of the world. Right? So would it be fair to say if Goldman came in to buy 1 million shares, they probably can't get it all bought at one price? That'd be fair? So it takes a lot of little orders to fill one big order. So let's say Goldman comes in to buy 1 million shares and we get half of them done. So they buy 500,000 shares. Well, look, if this was a stack of orders that went in to buy 1 million, and then we get half of them done, that means that other half a stack of orders is still sitting there in the market. And that's what we want to begin to identify, is where the unfilled orders are in the market. Right? Filled orders don't move price. Filled orders are volume. Volume is over. When a buyer and a seller get together, that trade is done. Both parties are satisfied. They got what they wanted. That doesn't move prices. What moves prices after that is where the unfilled orders are. So that's what I want to be able to identify, where those big stack of buy orders or where there's a big stack of sell orders. So look, if this is what it looks like when banks buy, right, big green candles, and there's only retail people or institutions. If institutions buy here, who is it that buys over here on the little green candles?
The retail.
Hey, the novice traders, right? The people that wait till Jim Cramer talks about it. Or the people that buy after the technicals have crossed over, or the people that have read an article in the newspaper about it, or in a chat room about it, and they're typically doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, right? And just in time for it to set back. Now this green candle over here, this is another one of those market traps we're going to walk you through in the 3-day. This is another candle that lures a lot of retail chart readers into buying right here, this reversal candle. A lot of retail people buy it right there. We'll go through why that is in the 3-day program. But just know retail people buy it here, and retail people buy it right here. Right? Now, if you bought it here, or you bought it here, how are you feeling about that trade down here? Probably not too good, right? Like, how the hell did I buy the high again? Somebody knows what I'm doing. They're out to get me. Well, that's not what's happening. You're just making the mistake that most novice traders make. And that is, 2 big mistakes novice traders make is they buy after a significant move in price, and they buy into an area of institutional supply. That's not where you want to be a buyer. So institutions buy it here. Once I get this big move like this, I want to say to myself, okay, that's institutional buying. What I want to know after this happens is, did they get all the shares they needed to? Are there going to be any unfilled orders? So can I look backwards and go back to the origin of this price move, go through this process, and identify if there's going to be a stack of unfilled orders? If there are, I can code that picture, that pattern with a yellow box, right, just so I can see it visually. I'm going to put a line on top and a line on the bottom, and I'm going to create effectively a zone. Because this is a buy order, I'm going to call it a demand zone. I'm going to carry those lines forward through time, and I want to place my order to buy right here on this top line. So the retail people that bought it here and the retail people that bought it here, when they're selling down here because they can't take it anymore, it's the institutions that bought half their position here, and then they waited patiently to buy the other half of the position here. So when the retail people are selling it, the banks and institutions are buying it. So we're going to make our money not on this move, because we don't know that's going to happen before it happens. But once this move happens, I can identify where I want to place my buy order, how to manage my risk, and then I'm going to wait. We're going to make our money on the second move and only the second move out of that area. Does that make a little bit of sense to everybody? You see where we're going here? So I mentioned we had 39, soon to be 40 locations all around the world, right? We have the online trading academies in 7 different countries now. Just about every major financial center, there's an online trading academy campus. And one of our newer locations is just down the street from the Singapore Mercantile Exchange, right in the heart of the financial district down there. And as you can imagine, in any big city, any place in the world, right, in the financial district, all the office space, it's all, brokerage firms, investment houses, trading shops, and mutual funds. It's a financial district, just like any place, right? And then there's the online trading academy. And when we first opened that location, our VP of Education, Sam actually went down there to host the first few classes that we did. And when Sam got there on his first set of classes, one of the local trading companies, actually a shop that was just a couple of floors below us in the very same building we were in, they sent a couple of their traders through our curriculum to kind of check us out and see what we were up to. And so these 2 traders came walking into Sam's class on day 1, right before class got started. They came walking in, trader type guys, super confident, wearing suits and the slick back hair, just the whole thing. And they walked in like they owned the place. Anyways, they walked up to Sam and introduced themselves to him before class started and said, hey, just want you to know, we're wise to what you guys are doing here, nudge, nudge. Let's face it, we know you can't teach people how to time the markets, but we're here to kind of check you guys out. We work downstairs, so we're just going to kind of sit in the back and just kind of watch and audit this week, so don't mind us. And Sam said, okay, well, he said, I'm glad you're here. He said, welcome. He said, we're going to be together for a week, so he said, I tell you what, while you're here this week, just do me a favor and stay open-minded. Right? Be adaptable to a new way of thinking about how the markets work. There just might be an easier way to do what you guys have been doing. He said, I'm going to give you a real specific set of rules this week. He said, when I lay that stuff out, he said, don't make up your own stuff. Don't incorporate your own rules. He said, just follow the rules as we got them laid out. Don't get them out of order. Just kind of go through our process with us, just at least for the week. He said, at some point during the week, all the rules are going to line up. You're going to have really high probability trades with low risk. He said, when that happens, I want you guys to click the button and actually make the trade with me. He said, if you'll do that this week in class, he said, I think I'll blow you away with what we're teaching people how to do over here. And especially the one guy, the older guy, the leader guy, he just wasn't having it, right? He was not sold. He's like, no, you can't teach people how to time the market. That's bull. Nobody can learn how to do what I do. It's impossible. You can't teach that. It's not something you can just learn. So they went round and round. Anyways, he and Sam finally sat down. They looked at a computer. They pulled up some charts. They started looking at some stocks this guy had been trading. And they looked at a stock in particular that he had been trading, and it really hadn't, for about 6 months before class, it really hadn't done much. It was trading kind of sideways, about $11 a share, just kind of chopping around a little bit of a range, right? But just a week prior to the class, it had a move where it went from 11 just straight up to 13. Right, just a moonshot, just bang, just straight up to 13, big green candles. And the trader said to Sam, he said, you see that move from 11 to 13? He said, that was me. He said, I single-handedly bought so many shares of that thing, I drove the stock up to 13 by myself. He said, look, it would have been impossible for you to train somebody how to time that move. Nobody could have beat me to that. You can't teach somebody to get ahead of me on that. He said, nobody knew I was going to buy that many shares but me. He said, my boss didn't even know I was going to buy that many shares of that thing. He said it would have been impossible for you to teach somebody how to get ahead of me on that. And Sam looked at him and said, well, you're right. He said, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what you're going to do before you do it. But he said, let me ask you this. Did you get your whole position on? And the guy looked at him and said, no, I only got about half the shares, but I stopped buying because I ran it up to 13. And Sam said, okay, so let me see if I got this straight. You took the thing single-handedly from 11 to 13, and you only bought about half of your position. And the guy said, yeah. And Sam said, okay, he said, I tell you what, this week in class, if that stock comes back down to 11, what do you think you're going to do? And the guy looked right at him and said, listen, 11's my number. If that thing gets back to 11 this week in class, I'm buying the other half of my position, and nobody can stop me. And Sam said, okay, well, isn't that all I really need to know? So it's not the first move that we make our money. The first move helps us identify where to place our order and how to manage our risk. We're gonna make our money on the second move and only the second move out of that area, right? Does that make a little bit of sense to everybody? So we wanna trade, we wanna do what the banks do, right? We wanna trade like financial institutions, and they have a different strategy than we do. They don't always tell us what they do, right? For example, if you had a financial advisor with Goldman Sachs, and you called them up and said, listen, you guys, you've been managing my money over here for 10 years. I'm paying you a fee every single year to do it, and my account's nowhere near where you told me it was gonna be 10 years ago. So you're fired, Mr. Goldman Sachs. I'm taking all my money home. I'm gonna go to this place called the Online Trading Academy. They're gonna teach me how to manage my own wealth bucket, and they're gonna teach me how to time the market and generate a second source of income. What do you think that financial advisor at Goldman Sachs is gonna say to you when you lay that one out? He's gonna say, man, you're crazy. Nobody can teach you how to time the markets. At Goldman Sachs, we don't try to time the markets. At Goldman Sachs, we make our clients money the old-fashioned way. Right? We build balanced portfolios of good companies. You hang on to those good companies long-term. Patience is how you make money on Wall Street. You got to give these positions time to sort themselves out. Hey, as long as they got you on the phone, let's buy some more XYZ stuff. Right? But that's what they say they do, but that's not necessarily what they do. Right? Goldman Sachs is a publicly traded company, and as a publicly traded company, that means they issue what's called an annual report to shareholders. So an annual report breaks down how they make every single penny of their revenue throughout the year. So for last year, 2016, this is right out of Goldman's annual report. There's a whole section there called Daily Trading Net Revenue. Right? Daily Trading Net Revenue. This is how much money they made day trading every single day. So although Goldman Sachs tells their clients, well, we don't day trade, they've got rooms full of people, and that's all they do all day long, every single day, is actively trade the markets, right, with billions of dollars. Now, this is, for 2016, their day trading desk had 222 profitable days and only 30 losing days. Now, who does that sound almost the exact opposite of? Most novice traders. Right, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. This is the number of days they made between 0 and 25 and only in a single day. This is the number of days they made between 25 and 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. And then on 19 days, they made over $100 million in a single day, actively trading the markets in and out. $100 million. They did it 19 times. That's absolutely massive. Right? Now look at how many big losing days they had. 0, 0, 0. Who does that sound like the exact opposite of? Also, most novice traders, right? They take on a whole lot more risk. I had a guy in one of my options classes who's he's a good friend of mine now because I've gotten to know this guy really well over the years, right? I spent some time one-on-one mentoring this guy, but when I first met him, he walked into my options class first day, introduced himself to me, and just said, hey, I want you to know before we get started this week, I'm in the 90th percentile. Like, okay, what's that mean? He said, well, my options trades. He said, I'm getting 9 out of 10. And I said, what? I said, you mean to tell me this week in class, if we make 10 trades together, you doing your own thing, not what I'm about to teach you how to do, but you doing your own thing, you're going to be right 9 times and only wrong once? He said, yeah, I've been doing that every week all year. And I said, well, man, what are you doing in my class? I said, if you're right 9 out of 10 times, those are Goldman Sachs numbers. You don't need my help if you're right 90% of the time. I said, you must have had a great year last year. How'd you do? And he said, no, I'm getting killed. That's why I'm here. And I said, I didn't do what the problem was. I said, you're getting killed. How are you getting killed if you're right 9 out of 10 times? And he said, because every time I start to get in a profitable trade, once something starts going my way, I get so excited about being right that as soon as I start to see some money in my account, man, I just sell it. My motto is take the money and run. He literally said to me, you'll never read a book about a rich guy that goes broke taking a profit. He said, as soon as it starts to go my way, I just get out, take the money in. I said, okay, so you got a lot of small little winners. I said, what happens on the one that doesn't work so well? So I knew what the issue was, right? I just wanted to hear him say it out loud. I said, please tell me you're practicing good risk management. He said, well. And I said, at the very least, are you using stop-loss orders correctly? And he said, oh yeah. He said, I use mental stops. And I said, what's a mental stop? He said, well, that's where I think about the number that I'm supposed to get out. And when it gets down there, that's where I'm supposed to just cut bait and go fish someplace else. And I said, and do you? And he said, well, usually if he gets down there, I'll give it a little bit more room. And I said, well, how's that working out for you? He said, well, not so good. He said, usually if it goes beyond that, he said, what I end up doing is buying more. I say, you buy more, that means you get more of a losing trade. So you don't want more of your losing trades, you want more of your winning trades. If you buy more and you double down, you move your average cost down, but now you own twice as much. And if it goes lower from there, now you're losing money twice as fast as you were before. And he said, yeah, that's what I found out, because usually just about the time I double down, that's right when it picks up steam to the downside. So by the time he can't take it anymore, and he's pulling the plug and blowing out of that thing, he's turned it into a big disaster. So here he is with these 9 little winners and then a big setback. And then 9 little winners and then another big setback. And he's just caught in that loop, right? That lost crab loop over and over and over again. He's basically doing the exact opposite of what a professional trader would do, right? Goldman actually made over half of their revenue from actively trading the markets. On this particular quarter, Morgan Stanley's trading desk made money every day but 4. Right? Bank of America's trading desk, they made money every single day of the quarter. Now, if all the big banks are all making money, who's losing it to them? The little guy. Because they programmed this. You guys ever see that show on TV, Shark Week? Not Shark Tank, Shark Week. You know that one? So I think it's on the Discovery Channel or Animal Planet or something. So in these great white sharks, they can shoot a tag into their dorsal fin, and then from a satellite, they can track where they swim all throughout the year, right? So there's a big course these things swim, right? Every single year, this big loop they make. You'll never see an episode of that show where you see a shark attack a shark. Right? Sharks don't eat sharks. That's way too dangerous. Sharks eat the seals with the broken flipper, right? And the fish that don't swim so fast. They take the easy ones. These guys aren't trying to make money off each other. That's way too difficult. Right? They've just programmed us over the years to do the wrong thing at the wrong time. Here's a perfect illustration of exactly what I'm talking about. This is also out of Goldman Sachs' annual report. This is called Goldman's VAR. That means value at risk. So I know this is a little deep in the weeds for a Wednesday night, but hang with me because this illustrates this perfectly. This is where Goldman Sachs has $100 million in the market at any point in time throughout the year. If you lay down a chart of the S&P 500 right below it, what jumps out at you, what you cannot miss or get wrong, is that when the market's going down, they're actually buying. That means when they're calling all their clients, when they're calling you and telling you, hey, look out below. Things don't look so good. We're in a risk-off environment. Sell what you got. Get on the sidelines. Better safe than sorry. Safety, safety, safety. They're actually buying things from you when you sell it in panic. And then after the market moves back up, they call you up and say, hey, you know what, false alarm. Well, better safe than sorry, but the water's warm now. Come on back in. It's safe to own stocks again. They sell them back to you. Right? They literally operate on a concept of wholesale and retail, just like Walmart does. Would you guys agree Walmart's probably the biggest retailer in the country? Brick and mortar, no doubt about it. Now, Amazon's eating their lunch online, but brick and mortar, Walmart's where it's at, right? Now, their whole business model is based on us walking in the store and buying things off the shelf. If we didn't walk in there and pay their retail prices, they would not be in business, right? So if I went over to Walmart right now and I bought one of these pens and I saw this thing sitting on the shelf for $1, what do you think Walmart's cost is? Maybe the most, right? They're probably buying them for 10 cents because they can buy a container ship full of these things, right? So they buy them wholesale and then they mark them up and sell them to us retail. So look, here's my plan. I've got some office space that I rented down the street. I'm going to go into business with you guys tonight. So when we're all done, I'm going to pass the hat. We're going to go over to Walmart, buy as many of these as we can for $1, and then from our new office space, we're going to sell pens in our store for $1.50. How long do you think we'll be in business? Probably not very long, right? Once you pay retail prices for something, prices don't go up for retail. Once you pay retail for something, that's as high as they get. Right? What's the last thing you bought at a retail price that actually went up in value? When you buy things at retail, things only go lower from there. So look, if I'm going to compete against the Walmarts of the world, the Goldman Sachs of the world, what I absolutely positively have to know is where they're buying theirs. Right? Now, when my Goldman broker calls you, and he's calling, if a stockbroker's calling you, are they calling to sell you something or to buy something from you? When a stockbroker calls you, they're calling to sell you something. Now, do you think they're calling to sell you something at a wholesale price? Or are they calling to sell you something at a retail price? So I'm gonna say, listen, I don't wanna buy it from you when you're selling it to me. I wanna buy it where you guys bought it. The way you compete against the big boys, you identify where they're buying theirs. Now, we can't buy as many as they can, but maybe we can cut a deal where we can get ours bought for 25 cents. And then if I know they're selling them at $1, well, let's sell ours ahead of that, and we'll take that big slice out of the middle. Right? So I wanna buy something wholesale, and I wanna sell it retail. I don't wanna pay retail prices. And that's what they programmed us how to do over the years. So I always tell people, listen, this is simple, but it's not easy. All right? The reason it's simple is because the process of identifying on a chart where those big turning points are, we already figured that out. That's a process we're going to teach you how to do, right? That's a step-by-step process that you go through. That's the simple part. That's straightforward. Took about 100 traders almost a decade to figure that out. Right? We finally got it patented in 2014. Would not be patented if it did not work. It's very, very cool. But the process of identifying that on a chart, that's simple. But what's not easy about it is it goes against maybe some of what you've been doing up until this point. Here's a great example. Once I get a big move like this out of an area, I know that's institutional buying. I've seen that a million times. So what I want to know now is, did they get everything bought, or is there going to be some unfilled orders there? So I look backwards, I go down to the origin of that price move, I go through the process, and if everything's an affirmative, bang, I've got a stack of orders. I'm going to highlight that with a yellow cube, put a line on top and a line on the bottom, carry the lines forward through time, and I'm going to use this zone to manage my risk. In other words, I'm going to buy it here, and I don't want to own it anymore if my zone breaks. So I know exactly where I want to be a buyer. So after this happens, if it comes back here, this is me buying it. So when it gets down over here, it didn't get low enough. Gets down over here, it didn't get low enough. When it gets down over here, it's not quite low enough. But when it's coming all the way down to our zone, and it's time to be a buyer, right? Is this candle red or green? It's red. So I'm not teaching you how to buy on green candles after it's moved up and it feels good, right? That's what most people do. They like to buy things after they're moving up because the feeling is it's going to continue to do the same thing. They end up buying the high to move just in time for it to come back. So I'm not teaching you how to buy on green candles. Right? So if the candle is red, is the price going up or down? Down. So the candles are red, the price is going down. Now if the candle's red and the price is going down, is the news in the market for this stock good or bad? Bad. It's going to be bad. So I'm teaching you how to buy on red candles when the price is dropping on bad news. Almost the exact opposite of what you've been doing now. But what you know is what other people don't know. You know where the institutions are going to reload and buy. Yes, sir. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, because you may not ever get to that point if the market goes the way it is going. Your other 2 points where you were saying, the low points, that may be the lowest for next 6 months.
It could be. And then you miss that trade.
Then your zone
Yeah.
really doesn't work.
So you can't kiss all the girls. You're not gonna be on every stock that moves. You can't get every single trade. Right?
That's it.
Yeah. So if you buy it up here, where are you wrong?
No, that I agree.
Okay. So then where do you buy it? Where do you buy it so that you can increase your probability and at the same time reduce your risk?
So what's the rest of the story?
So if you bought it here, where do you get out?
Yeah, you can put another bar there. That you can do.
Okay, so if you bought it here, where do you get out? You're getting stopped out over here as it moves beyond you. Right?
It can happen.
Right. So the people that bought it here, the people that bought it here, the people that bought it here, they're all getting stopped out over here. So who's the winner in this trade? The winner is not the people getting chopped around in here. The winner is the banks that bought half their position here, and they wait to buy the other half of their position right here. Right? If you implemented this strategy for the last 7 years, you absolutely hit a rock-solid home run. Because we've been in a huge buy-the-dip environment for the last 7 years, right? So you want to know where to be a buyer. And where you want to be a buyer is right where the banks are. Think about like other things you buy. If you were shopping for a flat-screen TV, and you knew exactly what you wanted, right? 80-inch, 3D, super ultra HD. You knew exactly what you wanted. You were just waiting to buy it. And you sit down in your morning cup of coffee, you open up the newspaper, and there that TV is on sale for 50% off. Would that be a good deal? Some of you guys would buy 2 of them if they were half off, because you know you could sell one for more later on, right? Well, how come stocks don't go on sale? Stocks go on sale every single day. What you haven't necessarily been able to do up until this point is identify clearly what that wholesale price level is. And now you have the ability to do that. So look, yeah.
How do you know that the banks didn't get all their positions in their first?
That's this process you go through.
Oh, okay, we haven't got to that.
You got it. So if it's not going to be an affirmative, you won't get a high scoring zone there, right? If you do, then you want to use the size of this zone to manage your risk. So this is exactly where I want to be a buyer. If it slices through the zone and the orders aren't there, I don't want to own it anymore. But I've got an increased probability of being correct, and I've got a way to minimize my exposure or minimize my risk on this trade. This is actually another one of those trades that we took right out of a live trade room. So you could have been at home, logged in, watching an instructor trade live in the market. Now, we do those live trade rooms 4 days a week for 2 hours at a time for all of the different asset classes. So if you're a futures trader, you can log in 4 days a week for 2 hours at a time and watch somebody trade a live futures account. Same thing with Forex, same thing with stocks, same thing with options. So that's a great way to learn. Now, if you were watching somebody, if you hadn't done a whole lot of this in the past, but you were watching somebody do this for a month, day in and day out, you think you'd be more comfortable doing it for your own account? The answer is, of course you would, right? Yeah.
Is this the second zone that you were referencing earlier about? Don't buy in the first spike, buy in the second one?
Yes, this would be the first one. This is the second one. That's exactly right. So this is where they got half of their order, and they're waiting for it to come back over here. So the retail people that tried to buy it here, or tried to buy it here, or missed it, couldn't take it anymore, threw in the towel and finally bought it right here, they're all bailing out of that thing over here and getting stopped out of those trades. That's exactly where the big banks are buying it. Now this is a futures trade. This is a one contract trade. Took about 30 minutes to go from where we bought it to where we sold it, but that was about a $600 profit. Again, that's in the futures market, right? So everybody in the room has an account size big enough to make a trade exactly like that, with one contract at a time. So the process of identifying these zones, we already figured that out. Again, it took about 100 traders, almost 10 years to figure this thing out, and it took us about 2 years to get it patented. It would not be patented if it did not work. Because it works on a price chart. If I took the name off a chart or the price off a chart, nobody could tell me what it was a chart of. So literally it works for stocks, futures, Forex, options. It doesn't matter what you're trading. Those big imbalances look identical. This is literally how supply and demand work and affect financial market pricing. So it's very, very cool. So this is something that's exclusive to what we do here at the Academy. You cannot learn this someplace else. It's ours. The reason we patented it, of course, is we're protective of it. First of all, it took us a long time to get it right. And we just don't want some guys to come through our academy, get a handle on what we're doing, and then go home and set up a YouTube channel and start teaching our strategy, right? That would not be good for our business model. Yeah.
If it's a patent, if we're dealing in the patent, somebody can raise your patent and do the deal.
And do the same thing? Sure. Could they automate it? Yeah. So the process of learning how to do this, first thing is what you're doing tonight, right? Then I said I'm going to send you home with some homework that's going to dovetail into what we do in the 3-day program. And I will tell you that the more effort you put into the homework, the more content that you're going to get out of the 3-day, right? And some people, that's all they ever do with us. And if you get everything you need, yeah.
Question, if the institute is a strategy, right? They still can work against the individual, right?
Say that again?
The big guy, they know this strategy too, right?
The big guys are the reason the strategy works.
Okay. But they can use, now you know something, right? The bigger guy also know from this one.
Yeah.
They can work out the different strategy to against.
Goldman Sachs is not sending their computer programmers over to the online trading academy to learn how to trade. They got their own guys doing their own thing. You know what I mean?
John, was that a single stock they were doing with it?
Which one? The last
What
example?
you just showed.
No, that was a futures contract.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how they made $600 in 30 minutes. That's a leverage, right? Leverage asset class. Yeah.
So in that you showed where they buy. You didn't show at what point where they sell it.
They just got out at 3-to-1 risk to reward. So I'm gonna get into that in a little bit here. So you're just on page 10. I'm still back on like 3 or 4. So the 3-day program, some people, that's all they ever do with us. Other people come through the academy. Some people take a class or two. Some people take every single class we have. That's sort of entirely up to you, and whatever your roadmap is. Everybody's a little bit different. But the process of learning this skill set, this is just like learning anything else, right? Best example I can give you is when I was about a junior in high school, I started having a conversation with my dad about the possibility of going to college. And when I was a junior, right, I had no idea if I wanted to go to college or not, but I sat down with my dad and he kind of gave me the whole speech, you know, your mother and I want you to go to school, we think it's the right thing to do. And he said, I just want you to know, if you decide to go, that we'll pay your tuition wherever you get accepted. So I think he knew based on my grades at Harvard was probably off the table at that point. But he threw it out there. And he said, but the only way this works, he said, is if you have some skin in the game. So he said, I'm going to make you the same deal I made both your brothers and your sister. And that is, every semester, you're going to have to buy your own books, right? I'm not buying them for you. And books weren't expensive back then for kids like they are now today. Neither was tuition for that example. But still, it was money I had to come up with. And he said, at some point, you're going to want to live off campus. He said, when that day comes, you have to pay your own rent. I'm not paying for it. So when I was a senior in high school, I started getting more serious about it and decided that was probably going to be the best path for me. And I grew up outside of Chicago, Illinois. And if you draw a circle, if you know where Chicago is, you kind of draw circles around them. About as far away from home as you could get was Arizona. So when I was a senior, I told my dad I wanted to go to school in Arizona. And he said, okay, he said, you know the deal. So when I got down there, I actually had to find a part-time job, and I had had a job since I was 14 years old, right? And I'm really glad my dad did that for a number of reasons. You know, I wasn't really sure when I was 14 why I needed to have a job, but later on as I got older, I knew what he was trying to teach me, and I was grateful for it. But at any rate, when I hit Arizona, I had to find a part-time job, and I had to pay my bills. So through a friend of a friend, I got introduced to this gal that ran a restaurant right near campus, and they were looking for a bartender. And this girl's name was Krista Edwards, so I'll never forget her. So I sat down with her, I answered the ad. I'd never bartended before, I didn't know anything about it. So we kind of were interviewing each other a little bit here, seeing if it was going to be mutually beneficial, right? She's looking at me like, okay, is this kid from Chicago going to quit in 2 weeks, or show up to work late every night, or cause trouble when he gets here? Because she didn't know me, and I'm looking at her like, okay, you're going to teach me how to do it, and can I really make enough tips to pay my bills? You know, the late nights going to interfere with my classes, just all that stuff. So we finally went round and round. We decided it was going to be mutually beneficial, and we were going to work together. So the first thing she did is she gave me a 3-ring binder. She said, here, take this home and study it. Come on back in a week. So I lugged this big thing home, and I started going through it, and I realized, well, it's all the rules and regulations of the restaurant, right? The dinner menu, the drink recipes, the dress code, what to do with the register, the bank at the end of the night, just all the kind of procedural stuff, all the rules. So I go through it all, went back in a week. She actually gave me a written test on the book. I'm like, well, thank God I opened the book. So I passed the test, and she said, okay, it's official. You're hired. Your first shift is Monday night. Don't be late. So when you get there, if you've ever worked in the service industry before, you know they just don't throw you behind the bar and say, okay, good luck, see you at midnight. Right? The first thing they do is they team you up with somebody that's been doing it for a while. So I got matched up with this girl who was the fastest bartender in the whole place, right? She made more tips than everybody. She was, you know, she was the most efficient. Her register, no matter how busy it was or how big her till got, she was never more than 50 cents off on any given night. She was always thinking kind of like 2 steps ahead, you know, kind of like a chess player. She never ran out of anything. She knew when to call for backup or never let glassware stack up. I mean, she was just efficient, right? So I just learned and just tried to absorb everything I could about being an efficient bartender. And then eventually what happens after a couple of weeks of doing that, the roles reverse. And they put me in front. Then I'm mixing the drinks, right? I'm running the register. I'm dealing with the waitresses and the regulars and the other patrons. But you know how it is when you're new at something? And you're kind of nervous to begin with, and then all of a sudden, man, it gets real busy in there, and you kind of have one of those moments where you just sort of forget what you're doing, because you're new at it. You have a little blackout. Well, if that ever happened to me, right, and it was crowded, she was right behind me the whole time, just willing to jump in and kind of bail me out if I needed it. And then as soon as I got it back under control, she kind of knew when to back off a little bit. And then eventually, you don't need the training wheels, right? You kick the bird out of the nest, you take off, you're on your own, and then 6 months or 12 months down the road, pretty soon you're the person teaching new people how to do it. So the process of learning how to do this is a lot like that. Actually, for those of you that move beyond just a 3-day and actually get into the academy, one of the first classes we send everybody through is what we call a pro trader class. This takes place in a classroom like this, where each and every student is assigned a workstation, where you're actually live in the market. And we're actually so convinced that we can teach you how to do this and that you'll be successful doing this, that in this pro trader class, you actually trade our account for an entire week. Now think about that for a second. We turn you loose on our account with our money for an entire week. Now, when you're trading our money for a week, you're not out there machine gunning trades all over the place, right? It's not about willy-nilly trade. It's about a specific process that you're going through to find these trades. It all comes back to risk management, right? But somebody's looking over your shoulder, helping you if you got stuck, right? And you just need a little bit of help.